Great.
Hello.
Hi, Abraham.
How do you feel? Better?
Well, a little bit.
Okay.
um, Let me put up a little comment to just pin at the bottom here so everybody knows if they chime in what we're doing. Hi, everyone who is joining us. We're doing our Slow.Look.Live conversation a bit earlier today than usual because we are with Abraham, who's in France. Okay, I'm going to post that. I'm going to pin that comment, and then we can chat. Hi, all.
Hey,
Oh, I'm very jealous of your beautiful outdoor countryside view.
it's nice. Yeah, it's not so bad.
Not so bad at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, for everyone who is joining in, this is our, I think I'm recognizing a lot of names. I know some of you have been tuning in with us each week, but some people may be joining us new. This is our little like Friday check-in, Slow Look Live, where we sort of slow down and we touch base with people who are in different places about how the places they're at are impacting their thinking in creative ways. So I'm Rachel Ropeik. I'm the learning director at the Aspen Art Museum, and my co-host in the beautiful countryside is Abraham Cruzvillegas, who is an artist. We had a show of his that was one of our great highlights at the museum last winter. So you get many hearts. Look at all of these hearts that are coming through. So I will say, just for everybody who knows, the comment feed, like if you have questions and comments as we go, by all means, feel free to type them into the comment feed, and I will keep an eye on the comment feed. And that way, Abraham can just show us our beautiful countryside view. So do you want to just tell us where you are, Abraham? We can be jealous and know where you are.
Well, yes. In fact, I'm with my family in a little town in the region of Yonne, in Bourgogne, in France. It's like 2 hours and a half away from Paris, and we are in the house of a friend that allowed us to stay while all this is happening. But before, we spent some almost 60 days in our apartment in Paris, where we usually live for some time now. Yeah.
And I feel like some of the stuff that we talked about was just like the difference in how it felt to be confined in your apartment in Paris and then to switch to the countryside. And I know when we had some initial conversations, because that's to pull back the curtain on how our Slow Look Live
Mhm.
program has come together, we usually have kind of a series of just check-in conversations over the weeks leading up to when we do the program. And it was really interesting to me to hear some of your thoughts about how you were observing being in your Paris apartment and now being in the countryside. And I wonder if any of that is something you want to share, like what it felt being confined in that Paris apartment for so long before you moved to the countryside.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think first time we spoke about this possible conversation, we were still in Paris, and we were not bad. In fact, I mean, we were quite good in the apartment, but still, like not being able to go out. And as Alejandra, my wife, and me, with the children, we decided to let's say to take care of ourselves and not to take any risk, and mostly because me, I have asthma, and so like maybe having me in the hospital or so would or any of us, I mean, like would put in risk the whole family. So it would be Alejandra going out for shopping, and so she's younger and stronger and smarter, so so she's the one who's been doing this since then. And so I think it was a good decision. But me, literally, I didn't go out I mean, at all for all those weeks. And I stayed at home, and we of course shared all the duties like cooking, cleaning, etc., taking care of the children. Of course, as not necessarily like that, but entertaining them, and also substituting the school, like not teaching, but trying to follow the all the homework they had to do at home. Of course, like thinking that it's impossible to replace the school environment, and so. And it was of course weird and strange, but still we were very happy. We are very happy, and thinking a lot about like efficiency and many other things that, of course, maybe we don't think while you live, let's say, so-called normal life. But it was a big difference and a big shift, like a big change coming to the countryside, just because of having so much space to go out, and for the children mostly, like to enjoy nature and to breathe fresh air, and to run and yell and jump and scream and complain with us, not thinking in the neighbors, not thinking in like making any, not disturbing the other people around us. I think it is a big thing, and we are very happy here.
And it's interesting too, I think, because you're talking about, it's like so many of these things that are differences between like the city and the country anyway, right? The amount of space and the amount of consideration for your neighbors and the way you're near or not to other people. But I feel like in this situation where you really just could not leave your apartment, and Paris was quite quick to put in restrictions
Yeah,
about not leaving.
yeah. I think. I mean, like everywhere. I think were some little troubles or big troubles. I don't know. I mean, it depends, and politically we can discuss in different levels. But I think in France there were many critiques, and so about like not doing things in time,
Mhm.
maybe because of Italy as it's so close, and so, and they were confined from before, and Spain also, and things like that produced some discussions. But anyways, the thing is that it worked very well, I would say, like at least institutionally, they were very careful. They are still very careful about the many things that you have to follow, instructions and restrictions. And I don't know. I think it is maybe more problematic the way we as citizens, let's say, as in the political old sense of the word political, the polis, the city, how we live the as part of a state or a nation, we follow, respect or not all these restrictions. And I think it's been complicated, and I mean, just because of being Paris such a small city, maybe it's something weird for many people what I'm saying, but it's historically it's been like contained, let's say. In a way, I would say it's been confined since always. First being a fortification and so on, but then like most of the people who work in Paris, for instance, they don't live in Paris, and then like everybody, because of all these small spaces where we live, and so it gets more complicated when you cannot go out, and then people go angry, and there people go anxious, and then we go mad at any government policy or so. But mostly it's because we are so used to have no restriction, and so, and I don't know. So it
Yeah.
is that's the thing that I think it went more complicated than anything else.
And I think it's been playing out certainly in the United States as well, because, different people have very different opinions about being required to follow government restrictions, or different states in the US are changing their restrictions or opening up restrictions in different ways. And obviously there's more more people are suffering from this disease in certain places, but it is, I think that same tension is very much on everybody's mind,
Yeah.
like whatever country you're in.
Yeah, also as you may know, I'm originally from Mexico, and at the very moment of the confinement, we discussed a lot with Alejandra about all possible environments or let's say scenarios, and one of those was, of course, going to Mexico around the second week of March, the
Yeah.
very day of my birthday. In fact, it started the confinement,
Oh
so that was
God.
my gift.
Happy
And
birthday.
yeah, exactly. And then so it went very hard and very confusing and very strong, taking a decision, like thinking what was the proper decision, not only because of my professional activity or Alejandra's professional activity, but for the children, for everything.
Right.
And then I think at the end we did well, because if in France or in Europe in general there was a, let's say, a little delay in terms of, let's say, when it started in China, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
In Mexico, it started later as well, so it would be delayed and delayed and delayed for us, and maybe not being able to come back or so. And so it was good at the end, and we think we are still in good shape. And of course, like talking about changes coming from Paris to the countryside, here it's beautiful. It's fantastic. I cannot complain. It's I mean, I'm super privileged now at this moment, but in general as well. But when we arrived here, you cannot imagine how immediately I started remembering all. I mean, my body started remembering me all the allergies I have, and I
Yeah.
started sneezing and coughing and feeling bad, having like a no, like it's bad, bad, bad. And I love nature, but I think nature doesn't love me.
Oh, it doesn't love you back the same way.
I think so.
I mean, I think that's also really interesting. It's like, I feel like so many of us are paying attention to the ways that where we are right now are impacting us, like the environments that we find ourselves in. And I know I shared this with you, but for everybody else, like, so I just moved to Aspen several months ago before all of this pandemic began. And I have not had seasonal allergies for pretty much my whole life. But all of a sudden, it's springtime and there's all sorts of new trees and new plants. And I've been having a lot more congestion and allergies too. And I also feel like just that moment of, um, those questions of like, is this allergies or am I getting sick? Or, being worried about what those symptoms mean sort
Yeah.
of feels different right now.
No, totally. And just like discovering again how many species of flies and, like spiders. And so it's at the same time beautiful and scary.
Yeah.
And I think it's like a understanding in a wider and maybe deeper way, as you just said, our relationship with nature. I think, in fact, it's not so stupid to say that what is happening is mostly because of our destruction of the environment. And then it's first, I think it's like we don't really historically it's hard for us to perceive ourselves as part of nature, and we see nature there and we here, and then it's a binary conflict, in fact. And it's a civilization culture, I don't know, Western culture, that produce this kind of divorce, that is not producing but only disease and maybe unfortunately death, but worse than anything else, I think, fear. And here I have to say it's true that I fear nature, I fear mosquitoes, I fear, but mostly I fear myself here.
Yeah. And it's like, I think that that point that you make is so relevant. I think we're used to living, especially if we're, those of us who live in cities, um, or are used to the kind of creature comforts of being able to order things from the internet and having them delivered to our houses, or being able to walk into a grocery store and have our pick of whatever food we want. And that's not a privilege everybody has, and it's not a lifestyle everybody has for sure. But I do think there's something about this moment where you realize that you don't have control in the way that you're used to having control over all of these factors of your life. And there is a
Absolutely.
fear in that.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think, I don't know. I mean, I'm not that paranoid, but I think at the very beginning, like in many other moments, I just started producing ideas that were also, of course, political, about like the creation and the invention of an idea that meant fear from I don't know, like in a secret lab, I don't know where. So to have people at home, not going out for demonstrating, not going out for political activity again. And of course, I don't really think that, but I at the beginning I think, why we have to feel fear again? Fear, I think, is the one of the most horrible forces ruling our lives. And in general, I mean, it's not that I don't feel fear, but I prefer to think that I can go beyond that and to produce something that is also not just trying to imagine that I can come back to whatever it was called normal, but maybe just accepting that we have to learn again, or maybe unlearn what we used to take as normal, and also doing this with our children. I mean, like everybody. I mean, and then this is something I've been. I mean, I find still more productive than going crazy about not being able to make lots of sculptures in the studio, or not writing because I have to whatever, I don't know. So
Yeah.
it's a
So
new something.
and I wonder if that is changing, because we were talking a little bit about that idea of what efficiency and productivity look like. And how does that shift away maybe from making artwork to, like taking care of your children, or like you were also teaching, and how did teaching
Right.
have to shift? And I guess I'm sort of curious about if you want to share some of your thoughts about how that idea of like efficiency um, and like a change of priority, like did that help you address that fear, or just kind of redefine what was
Mhm.
important for you in this moment?
Absolutely. I think it's I mean, I think we are talking about many things, and it's all related, of course. But one thing is that, just about efficiency again, is that I learned, or I've been learning again, that in fact it's not so good, like, to overproduce. I mean, like the way we went, it's far from normal. In fact, like taking 20 planes in 2 months, and about health issues, and besides security issues that are also super weird for me, and in airports, I mean, and so on. And this is for making art projects, or for going to art fairs, or to make I don't know. I think it's, I mean, in economical financial terms, it's fantastic, of course, but I don't find it so natural. And so I think it's important to I don't know, is to measure again, to have more, like, not in a moral way, but more like in a self-caring perspective, like how to do things now. And second thing is about like usual things that I was doing, like taking 20 planes in a row
Yeah.
in some weeks, and then going back to normal again for teaching. Because now, for instance, I'm teaching in the school in Paris, the Beaux-Arts, and but I've been teaching for long time, since 1991, and non-stop. I mean, so it became normal also for me, like going to the school and being surrounded by a crowd of younger colleagues, sharing and talking and etc. But then everything stopped like that. That I think the only, maybe the only aspect I really miss of all of this is conviviality. And I
Mm.
think this is my colleagues, the students. I mean the persons in the group I work in the Fine Art School of Paris, I feel they have the same thought, and it made me in fact remember of when Nazi occupation of France and how they experienced this in sort of a confinement. Of course, not the same because it was not because of a health reason or so. And there was a small thing of that went big, in fact, for the government there then. That was a group of young people that they called themselves Zazu, following the title or some of the rhymes in a song by Cab Calloway. And they went out in the streets like dressing like a very straffalarious clothes and with pompadour hairdos, and so like challenging the restrictions, challenging the rules, challenging these restrictions in a cultural way, I would say, like punks, let's say, in that time, or hippies in another time, and so on. So this is again because of lacking of the space of conviviality, the space of discussing things together, to be together. Togetherness, I think, for me, which should be the opposite of fear, in fact. And this is, I think, a very nice discovery again to remember all of this. And I would like to hear about my students, what's their perception. We've been making lots of video conference meetings instead of meeting in person. And of course, it's
Sure.
not the same, but I think the most important thing of these meetings is not what we say, but just to know that we are there, that we are in good shape and we are in good mood. Not all the time, but yes.
Yeah, and you're making me think too about just like video clips that I'm seeing being shared around on social media of people who, like, I remember there was one, I don't remember, maybe he was in Spain. I think it was in Spain. There's a man who was going out in one of those inflatable Tyrannosaurus Rex costumes on the street, and and just kind of, you know, wandering around on the street to sort of be a source of humor or joy in these moments. And yes, he was going against the restrictions of quarantine, but there was, there are videos of people cheering for him from their balconies, looking down and, shining little spotlights on him to kind of guide his way. And I do think there's something about those little moments where people do go against the restrictions, hopefully in a way that's safe. In this case, he was by himself. He was not gathering groups. He was not, spreading disease, but that importance of reminding us that we are still part of a community and that conviviality, as you say.
Exactly. Yeah. No. And again, I feel privileged, not only because of being here in the countryside, but also because I feel I have something I can call a community, not only the students from the school or former students from other schools, but also my galleries, artists that I work with, people that are kind of family for me, and that I feel protected by these kind of social tissue. I mean,
Yeah.
properly said, and of course my family, my relatives. But I think it's something that you value more in this moment, and it's not that you have to go out like wearing a, a T-Rex costume, but I think, I mean, me, I don't need that, but
I don't either.
but it's more about like having the will and the wish of transforming ourselves, not by disguising, but becoming ourselves again after maybe letting back, getting rid of ourselves.
Yeah, and it's like, as you said, it's like sometimes it might just be on a video conference, right? It doesn't have to be in the street, but these little reminders that we're still here with each other, and that whatever the next phase of this will look like when we're able to loosen some of these restrictions or start to be back in person again, like we're still here with each other waiting for that time.
Exactly. And again, maybe I don't know, like all these platforms that maybe myself I was not so familiar to, like doing video conferences, and so I'm not. I mean, I don't use all of them. I use only like a couple of social network platforms, and I think it's of course becoming more and more a routine tool for many people for many purposes and things, labor, learning, I don't know. But I also still believe that the power of these tools again, it's being together, and hopefully we can produce some kind of transformation of ourselves, but not just like because of belonging, but also because we can use and transform the tool itself into something more beautiful.
I agree. I think I've been thinking about that a lot too because, so we have been doing a lot of work at the Aspen Art Museum to think about how we want to use these digital tools, and not everything makes sense to be doing digitally, but some things do. And if we're going to do things digitally, how can we do them a little bit differently so that we're making good use of the tools and trying to turn it into something beautiful? And I think that's actually been one of my favorite parts of doing this particular conversation series, the Slow.Look.Live, is each one gets to, it's like here we are getting to chat with you in the evening in the French countryside. And for whatever reminder that brings to me, certainly, or to anybody else viewing, that like there are still all of these other parts of the world and people are there and we're all kind of still able to share. We wouldn't be able to do that without some of these online tools. So,
Sure.
yes, I am as suspicious as the next person about wanting to be careful of not blindly using all of these tools without being aware of, concerns about privacy or the putting up a screen instead, like looking at someone on a screen instead of looking at someone in person. They're not the same experience, but I do think using these tools to make something beautiful is something I've also been thinking about. So it's also kind of a nice silver lining, I guess.
Completely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think, well, there are maybe two little things I want to say. One is that not so long ago, we made a project with a couple of friends, a choreographer, her name is Barbara Fulques, and a musician, his name is Andres Garcia Nestitla. We did it for the kitchen in New York,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a performance, but it happened uh, that Andres didn't get the American visa. But we succeed in doing a transmission via, I don't remember if it was Skype or something like this.
Mm-hmm.
So he was able to improvise after watching the video we were streaming online, and he was answering from Mexico City live. So this is what I'm talking about, and I think it's what you were also saying, that it's super important to take advantage of all these things, but I think in a creative way. So not to depend on this, and maybe just to break boundaries and to say again that all borders and all frontiers are stupid and silly.
Yeah. And there, it's like in some ways there's it brings attention to the arbitrary quality of some of these barriers and borders that are set up between people
Right.
when you're able to kind of get around them using these tools in such ways. It does. And I know that kind of is part of, I think it's part of what I think a lot of people responded to in your work when you had the show at the Aspen Art Museum was kind of breaking down some of those arbitrary borders of what should be art, or what art materials should be, or, and I think drawing attention to that, the arbitrary quality of some of those limitations
Yeah,
is valuable.
sorry. Yeah, maybe the sad thing about what is happening again is that about being together is that for this project I made there, that it was first presented differently in Austin, the Contemporary Art Museum there. It was nice that I succeeded in making a project that went to Aspen again for having people together, local communities using the space of the exhibition for activations that were proposed by themselves. So it was me, I was kind of a visitor, one more of the visitors for witnessing a beautiful activity of crowds visiting the museum, doing things that they wanted, using the sculptures for whatever they wanted, like skateboarding, dancing, making ceramics, music, children playing, I don't know. It was so beautiful, and now I think it will be hard to have that kind of project again for a while.
And that's something, you know, we're starting to talk about, because that exhibition that you had in the museum, so many people both in the museum as well as just in the community around the museum loved those activations so much and spoke so highly of them, um, and that it was so responsive to interests of people in this area. And so I think that has still really affected us. And as we're starting to think about, you know, in the coming months, we'll see. We don't know what's going to happen. We certainly won't be able to have big crowds in the museum again, but like maybe we can do some outdoor programming, or maybe we can be sharing supplies with people that they're not doing in groups, but they can take with them to be creative on their own. I think that that idea of trying to open up the possibilities
Yeah,
of what we can do with art to help people is
right.
something that is
You
on
know,
our minds very much.
just 1 week before the confinement, I was making a performance with two drummers, artists, friends, Alberto Cabrera and Gabriel Curie in Brussels. And it was so funny because it was a tiny space. It's a gallery made there called La Maison de Rendezvous, made by galleries friends together, that they may open a small space for sharing exhibitions. And I invited my friends to do a performance with me. And it was so packed, it was crowded, maybe not many because it's tiny, but let's say 50 persons in a room with two drummers and me shouting and yelling and trying to think I can sing. But only 1 week after, we were encapsulated.
Yeah. It is, and I think it's really interesting to see, like we don't know I mean, I know people, the new normal feels like a phrase that isn't quite right, because it isn't normal and it isn't going to be the same, but what we're going to be able to do, and maybe that's a kind of event that won't happen for a while,
Right.
but you
Yeah, I
know.
don't know. Like I've been talking about many things with the people from my galleries, that we are all friends here in Paris with Chantal and Niklas, in Mexico with Jose and Monica, with Sean in Los Angeles, and with Francois in London. And I think we all agree in that the most important thing is to keep risky our activity, not stopping doing our job, but not in the so-called capitalist efficiency again. So maybe it's the best time for big going subversive, experimental, crazy, stupid, delirious pataphysics, you know?
I love all of those words. I do. It's like all of these new experiments that are coming, and I hope that they are able to get away from, and I think we're already seeing some of that, you know, that people are getting away from that kind of capitalist like definition of productivity or event, or, you know, these rigid definitions, and really trying to open up what those things might look like.
Yeah, maybe it's naive and childish what I'm saying, but I really believe in that, and maybe that's why I keep working in schools, because I still believe we can change things with younger generations of colleagues, and this would bring, of course, something. Whatever it is, the scale is not important. It's a lot.
Yes. Absolutely. Maybe that's a really lovely, oh, and you've got the sun behind you. Maybe that's like the perfect little note to wrap up our conversation on, is just like this hope for kind of the next generation, and the possibilities and experiments and new ways of doing that we may all be able to find out of this strange time.
I believe so.
But I guess so. I want to thank you all for joining in. Thank you, Abraham, for this beautiful walk through the countryside that you have given us while we've been chatting. And I hope your allergies calm down for you and the mosquitoes are not too bad.
We hope. I mean, I hope that we all will feel better very soon.
Yes.
Keep
Here's
healthy and
to
in good mood.
Yes, and here's to conversations in person again sometime soon.
We will.
Okay.
Gracias.
Bye everybody.
Ciao.
Ciao.